Howdy my totally as always tubular gamers, we're back with you guessed it, another video. Thanks for coming back to the channel. I don't have a list or a ranking video for you today. Today I've got a review. I'll be doing a quick review, a quick look-see on the remaster of Monster Hunter Stories that is recently released on all modern platforms. I do want to give a shout out to Capcom for hooking me up with the game. It is very much appreciated, but enough of the introductions, let's get into it. So Monster Hunter Stories is a very different kind of Monster Hunter game. If you're someone who's played the mainline games like World or Rise, yeah, this game's not really like that. While it has plenty of similarities to the mainline Monster Hunter games, it really is its own beast entirely. Now, to start somewhere with this game, if you look at the title, it's got the word stories in it, so let's talk about the story. The story is one of the main focuses of this game. You actually don't play as a monster hunter, you play as a monster rider. And after you create your customizable character, you're dropped into this village where you learn about the village's world, characters, and some of its tragic backstory. Eventually you set out into the world to go tame monsters and help others, and I'll just say there are a lot more sinister things afoot and leave it at that. I don't want to spoil any of the story, especially since the word story is literally in the title. That being said, I think the story to this game is pretty decent. I don't think it's much of a hot take to say the mainline Monster Hunter games don't have very good stories, at least not the ones I've played. They're usually pretty forgettable with some very forgettable characters. This is certainly more memorable. There actually are some characters with, character. There's a decent amount of backstory, and there's actually some world building and lore here. I think it's pretty decent. Is it amazing? No, I didn't think any of the characters particularly stood out all that much, and the storytelling didn't particularly engross or entice me, but I still liked it for what it was. It was a decent little story, and yeah, I think it's alright. I think it's cool that they can make a narrative-driven game in the Monster Hunter world. It very much is possible, and this game absolutely proves it. Now, when it comes to the gameplay, yeah, this is pretty different from the mainline Monster Hunter games. I'll immediately say the biggest difference between this and mainline is that this is a turn-based RPG. All of those big epic fights you're used to in the mainline games, yeah, they're all turn-based here where, you attack, your monster attacks, the enemies attack, and sometimes the order is mixed up depending on the speed stat, but it's not the most complex battle system. The battles fall under a rock, paper, scissors style of fashion where every attack is either speed, technical, or power, and certain ones counter each other like speed counters power, power counters technical, etc. And part of the gameplay is understanding what each monster is going to attack with, so then you can totally counter it. And of course there's going to be some trial and error in there, but it's a decent enough little system. You also have some special attacks, and once you attack enough, you'll gain enough kinship so that then you can ride your monstie, and then you can do some big mondo attacks. And like I said, the battle system, it isn't crazy complex, it is actually relatively simple, and considering how long this game is, it can get a bit stale and repetitive at times. I mean, it really comes down to just knowing what exact move to use, and even when there's a bunch of monsters you're up against, if you can use a move that counters it, you'll be just fine. It does get a little challenging at times, but I never found it totally overwhelming. Thankfully, there is a speed up feature, which I immediately turned on just because I was like, oh yeah, these battles are going to get old, and yeah, they do get a bit old. But again, I wouldn't call the battle system bad, it's just a bit simple. And of course, when you defeat enemies and complete side quests, you'll get XP, you can level up your character and also the monsties. And getting monsties isn't all that different from Pokemon. I would say that this game is actually a bit of a monster collecting game. You have to go into the monster's lair though and take the egg, literally stealing them from birth, but then you can raise it, level it up, it'll learn new moves, you can even ride around it in the open areas. The structure of the game is pretty similar to regular Monster Hunter with a bunch of segregated areas versus like a big open world, but instead of doing just a ton of hunts, it plays like a more traditional RPG where you usually get a quest to go somewhere, find something, find someone, there's a boss fight, and of course a bunch of enemies just roaming around that you can get into fights with. I think the structure of the game and the pacing of the game is more than fine enough. It is a bit traditional and it's not the most exciting at times, but it's still good. There's plenty of side quests here which actually are worth it since you get a lot of XP, but I'll be the first to admit that these side quests are not very good. They're about as good as regular Monster Hunter, where it's just the most cookie cutter basic fetch quest side quests imaginable. The main quest is certainly a lot more interesting, and there's a lot more story to that as well. When it comes to this game's presentation, you very much can tell this was originally a 3DS game that's been ported over. I think for a 3DS game, yeah, it looks fine. The textures are pretty basic, the character models are okay, and the animation is decent enough, but I'm not really going to harp too much on it. What I can praise though is the voice acting. The original game did not have this. They actually updated it and added it, which is pretty awesome. I feel like that's incredibly rare. Not even the Ace Attorney games did that, and so I think the voice acting acting. Just existing is great, but it's decent enough too. The music I thought was relatively forgettable, but the sound in general was decent enough. You know, there's a bunch of familiar Monster Hunter sounds, which is always going to be cool in my book. But let's wrap things up here. Is this game worth it? Well, it depends on what you're looking for. If you like Monster Hunter, if you're looking for something a little different with your Monster Hunter, yes, I think it is. If you've played Stories 2, are you going to like this? Yes, but just keep in mind Stories 2 is a lot more advanced and better, and this game at times can feel really basic. I'd say my biggest issue with it is that it feels simplistic in several areas, especially considering how long it is. It got a bit tiresome for me personally. I still like the game, I still think it's good, and again, if you're looking for a more traditional, lengthy RPG with a Monster Hunter flair, I think this is a pretty good one. But I still would recommend the second one. I think the second one just has a lot more going on. There's more monsters, the battle system's better, the presentation's a lot better, and the story's more engaging. But this original game is still a nice time, and I am glad that I played it. Am I going to come back years down the line yearning to play this game? Probably not. There's even multiplayer, but I couldn't play it since I was playing the game early. At the end of the day, this isn't replacing the main Monster Hunter games, it's just an addition, and I think if you really like Monster Hunter, you're probably going to like this game. I will say though, if you played the 3DS version of this game, there is no reason to play this new version. Despite the voice acting, it really is the same game. Do I recommend it at the end of the day? Yes, I do think it's worth your time. I would say get it on a sale though. And that about does it. Hope you all enjoyed the video. I'll see you all later. I'm going on vacation. Bye bye now.